Hello guys, welcome back to this channel and thank you for watching. Please remember to subscribe to our channel for more tutorials. In our part 1 of this series, we looked at VRP, which is the operating system that operates on all Huawei Datacom devices. So the router, the switcher, the firewall, they all have a VRP as the operating system. In part 2 of this HCIA series, we'll be exploring some basic CLI commands that you can use on Huawei devices, both switches and routers, because they are all running the same system. So this part 2 will help you to get familiar with CLI operations as we dive deeper into advanced configuration on Huawei devices. So at least you need to be able to run some basic commands to know how to check some basic things like the status of the interfaces, the current configuration. Then we'll be able to advance into the other advanced configurations. So to start with, we have different views on Huawei as we discussed in our part 1. So before you start configuring anything, you always need to be in the configuration view. The same way on Cisco, you need to enable, then configure terminal. So on Huawei, you just need to run the system view command, and then you will be in the configuration view. So for you to enter configuration view on Huawei, you run the command system view. So if we log into the router on our ENSP, on this router 6, you can see we are in the user view. So if we want to go into the system configuration view, we run the command system view, and then we'll be now in the configuration view, and we can start making changes that we want to, or we can do the configurations that we are required to configure on this device. So the system view command takes you to the configuration view. Then before, it's a good practice to give names to your devices. Even in the live network, it's a best practice to name your devices. So you need to have a name for all the router, the switcher, the firewalls. It's easy to identify, especially when you are doing operation and management. And you need to have a standard naming for your devices in the network. So for you to configure a name for your router or a switch or a firewall, you just need to type the command sysname. So sysname, then you enter the name that you want. So it's a string. So if we go back to the CLI, as you can see, we are in the system configuration view. Then if we say sysname, it tells you that you need to enter a text, and it's from 1 to 246 characters. So we can give this router name. For example, we call it router 1. So it has changed to router 1. So the sysname command helps you to assign a name to your device, be it a router, switch, or a firewall. And remember, this is in a lab setup, so you don't need to commit. The moment we type the sysname and router 2, it changes to router 2. So you don't need to run the commit command. But on these big routers, the router that we now use in real networking scenarios, you need to commit. You run the commit command, and then the system name will change to the specified name that you've configured. So this is how you change the name of your device. You run sysname, then you give the name. Then how do you check the configuration on a device? Like, you want to see the current configurations on the device. So on Huawei, we have the display command. The display command is similar to the show for Cisco, or show for Nokia, or even Juniper. So the display command, if you want to display all the running configurations on the device, we can run the command display current configuration. Then we'll be able to see all the configurations on the current configurations on the router. So if I just go into the lab and then on this outer one, and I run the display current configuration, this command you can run it in any view. You can run it in the system view, you can run it in the, in the user view, and you can also run it in the configuration view. So if we display the current configuration, you can see that we are able to see all the configuration that are on this device. So you can just press the space bar and then you'll be able to display all the configuration that are configured on this router. If you don't want to press the space bar, you can run this command, screen length 0 temporary. So it means once you display the display current configuration, you don't have to press the space bar. But this is in a lab simulation and the command doesn't work for us. But on an ATN, on a CX, on any 8000, you'll be able to run this command, screen length 0 temporary, and you don't have to press the space bar. You'll be able to display all the configurations at once. So this is how you display the current configuration. That display command and then current configuration, and you are able to get all the configurations that are currently on your router. The third command that we are looking at is how you save the configuration. So remember, once you've made a change on your router, you need to save the configurations so that in case, for example, there is a power issue or the router misbehaves and then reboots, the configuration will be persistent. You won't lose the configuration, because if you don't save the configuration and there is any reboot on the router, then you end up losing the configuration. So you always have to save the configuration after you've done any configuration on the router, so that the configuration will be persistent. You won't lose the configuration in case of power issue or in case the router misbehaves and then reboots. So to save the configuration, you run the save command. So once you run save command, many times it will ask you whether you want to save or not. So if I run save, I just click enter and then it asks you, are you sure you want to continue? Are you sure you want to save the current configurations to the saved configuration? So I click yes, and then it saves the configuration. Sometimes you need to specify the name of the file you want to save the configuration. So you can type save, and then you can see it's telling you that you can provide a string, the name of a specific file, .cfg or .zip. So I can give it current config and maybe provide the date or any format that you want to give that name, .cfg, and then I click enter. It still asks me, do I want to save the configuration on this directory, on this path, the flash/current config? Yes, then I'm able to save the configurations on this file that I've specified. So for you to save the configuration, just run the save command and click enter, yes, and then you are able to save the configurations to the specified file. And then so yeah, you click save, and then the second one just show that you can provide the name of the configuration. So you save the configuration.cfg. Another operation, another basic command that you may have to use is the reset saved configuration. So you've saved the configuration, but then you want to reset the router. You want to return the default configuration on the router. So in this scenario, you will use the reset saved configuration. So it will clear all the configured parameters, and then the router will back to the factory settings. You won't have any configuration that you have manually configured on the router. So you just run the command reset configuration, and then it will clear all the configured parameters on the router. Sometimes you also have to set the startup configuration file. For example, maybe you have a backup file on the router, and then there was a power issue on site and the configurations have been cleared. You don't have any configurations. It's back to the factory settings, and you have a backup file. So you can FTP to the router, load this file, and then you can specify the startup configuration file on your router. So you just run the command startup saved configuration, and then you need to specify the name of the file that you want to use as your saved configurations, and then it will be used when you are restarting the router. This is the configuration that will be used to start up the router. So it will be your startup file. So you reset the saved configuration, then you can do a startup saved configuration file, and then you have set the startup configuration for your next startup for the router. Then how do you check the version on the device? This is very easy. You run display version. So when you run display version on the router or the switch or the firewall, it will tell you the software version that is running on the device. So for example, this one, you can see we have version 819 ATN 910CG, and the software version is v3r6. So it's v3 release 6. It will also tell you the patch version. You can see the patch version, it's v3r6 SPH10. So this one gives you the software version that is running on the router, both the software and the patch. So you just run display version, and then you will be able to get the software and the patch that is running on the device. And it's also telling you the uptime. You can see this device has been running for 1,171 days, 13 hours, 1 minute. So from this detail, you are able to tell if there is any issue with the running of the router. If you get it's maybe running for 3 hours, it means there was a reboot. But this one means it has been running for 1,171 days continuously without any issue. Then sometimes we have the big routers in the network, and we need to check the devices or the components, the cards, the line cards, the fan, the power supply units. So when you display device, it will list the type and status of components on a device. For example, when I run display device on this router, you can see we have different cards. For example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up to 8, we have the PIC card, and you can see the status, it's online. Registration status, it's registered. It's present for online, it's registered. Status is normal. And then for others, you can see we have the NPU, we have the MPU, and you can also see whether it's primary or the master. We have the power modules, we have the clock and the fan. So this one gives you the status of the components on a device. If it's abnormal, the status will indicate it's abnormal. If it's not registered, it will also be unregistered. So when you are doing the health check of your device, this command will be very handy. You display the device, it will be able to tell you the status of all the components on a device. Then sometimes you just want to display part of the configurations instead of displaying the entire configurations. So this display this command will be able to display just the configuration in the current view. For example, if you see in the screenshot, we are under the interface gig 000. If we want to display just the configurations within this interface, you display this and it will only show you the configurations within that gig 00. So maybe you need to see only the BGP configurations, you need to see only the ISIS configuration, or any other protocol that you want to check just the configuration specific to the current view. It could be the interface view, it could be the protocol view. You display this command and you'll be able to see only the configurations within this view, which makes your work easy because you don't have to navigate or to scroll before you reach a given the specific configuration that you are looking for. Then sometimes you want to clear the configurations, like you have an interface that was connecting to a given router, and then you've changed that interface and you've connected a different device. Remember, you can't, many times you need to change the configurations on this interface. So you can clear configuration this, like when you are under this interface, you run the command clear configuration this, and it will clear only the configurations within that interface. For example, on this slide, if you are under gig 000 and then you run this clear configuration this, it will clear the IP address, it will clear the MPLS configuration. So you end up just having the interface without any configurations, only the default configurations. But those ones that were manually configured, all the parameters will be cleared with this clear configuration, this command. Then how do you cancel some configuration? On Cisco you use the no. On Nokia we normally use no. If you've configured an IP address, you run no IP address or no MPLS. So on Huawei we have the undo command. As you can see, if you are under interface gig 00 and you want to remove the MPLS configuration, you undo MPLS. So once you undo MPLS, you can see down there, we don't have the MPLS configuration. So this is how you undo configurations in a given view. And of course, in a real networking device, you have to commit for it to take effect. But this one is a simulation environment, so we don't have to commit. So you run the undo MPLS, it will remove the MPLS configuration. You run undo IP address command, it will undo the IP address configured. Then when you are under a given view and you want to return to a lower view, like you are under the interface configuration and then you want to return into the global configuration, you can use the quit command. So you type the quit command, it will take you back one level. So as you can see, we are under the interface. If you run quit, it takes you into the global configuration view. If you run quit command, it will now take you back to the user view. But sometimes you want to jump directly from interface configuration view to the global. So you just run return. So the return command will take you back to the global configuration view no matter where you are. So we have the quit and then we have the return command. So these are just some basic commands that you can use when you are navigating the CLI for Huawei routers, and they are very handy when you start doing configuration or you start doing troubleshooting on Huawei devices. So thank you for watching, and please remember to subscribe to our channel as we will be posting more content on HCIA training, certification, and we also have IP run content and many other lab simulations will be posted on our channel. So please remember to subscribe and stay tuned for more videos on our channel. Thank you.